Got a couple messages on Discord and also on one on YouTube. People want to know why the heck I started doing this. So back, let me see here, 2004, I joined the Marine Corps. That's still my current profession, like right now. I joined the Marine Corps in 2004. I went to the recruiter's office, said I wanted to be infantry. They said, too bad, infantry is already capped out. We don't have any more space, right, at this recruiting office. So I was like, all right, cool. We're in the middle of wartime, right? I want to be freaking a field or a open contract then, right? So I did open contract. I took my GT, I did my ASVAB and everything, and realized that I'm a moron, right? My electrical score is real high. Everything else was just trash, right? So I get to boot camp. We go to this room. Like it's like close to the end of boot camp. I don't know. You see, Marine Corps boot camp's 3 months, so it's probably like 2.5 months, a little bit further than that along. You know, like about 90% of the way done. We go to this room and they give us our jobs. Everyone that was open contract, and they tell us, they're like, hey, you know, they said recruit Jaeger. I'm like, here, you know. And then they said field wireman. And the guy standing up there, he's reading the thing. Everyone else was supply admin. And I'm sitting there like, yo, I did not join the Marine Corps to be supplier admin. If you're watching these videos and you are supplier admin in the Marine Corps, nothing against you. Fire for effect on people's pay all day. But yeah, that's not something I want to do, right? I had a job before the Marine Corps at FedEx. I was like, I don't want to do that. The guy read off recruit Jaeger. He said field wireman. And they said, what the hell is that? And he walked out. So I got told my job was 0612 field wireman. The drill searchers came up, gave us some books, gave us some handouts of, hey, this is what, you know, different MOS codes are. Field wireman was not in there. I guess the job just changed at that time. It used to be like 24. I want to say 24 because 28's tech. So I want to say it was 24 something. 24, 26 something. But I didn't know what my job was, what my MOS was. One of the drill searchers came up to me. He said, what MOS are you? I said 0612 field wireman. And he said, oh, you ever seen enemy at the gates? I said, yes, sir. He said, you know the guy, you know how they keep sending people reels of wire out on their back and they keep sniping them? I was like, yes, sir. He said, that's your MOS. I was like, oh, life expectancy has severely decreased, right? So I was like, all right, I guess my job's to carry real wire on my back. And sure as shit, that was the job. They called us wire dogs because literally in, I think it was World War I and World War II, they actually used dogs as this job. That's how dumb this job was. They actually just used dogs, right? But yep, they give me a freaking real wire. I'd take one side of it, or we had little backpacks for it, or, you know, depending on what it was. And we run. And that was it. We run to wherever it goes, right? So I got my first duty station, and it was Okinawa, Japan. Right, actually, where I am now, which could be most likely my last duty station. But before I retire. But yeah, first duty station was Okinawa, Japan. So I came over here. All right, and it was like the second week here, something like that. And back then, for the old school, for the more old school guys, you know, I know I'm not freaking old school, but for the more old school guys, back then you didn't really talk to the sergeant. You didn't talk to staff sergeant above. Any staff and CO you never saw. You didn't really talk to the officers. No. Highest person you talked to was maybe a corporal. You know, if the lance corporal couldn't figure it out. But every Friday, the sergeant would come out there and he would give us our little safety brief for the weekend. You know, don't buy hookers and that whole thing, right? So it was like the second week there, and he said, "Does anyone have any questions?" Of course, nobody ever had any questions for the sergeant, you know. But I raised my hand, and everyone looked at me like, "Well, you're getting your ass beat." And I said, "When do we go to Iraq?" And he started laughing. He thought that was hilarious. He was like, "You don't go to Iraq from Okinawa, right?" So after that, everyone just laughed, and I just became the laughing stock. But whatever, you know, it's okay. From there, about a month later, I raised my hand, and the sergeant said, I did this every Friday I did this, right? About a month later, I raised my hand, and the sergeant looked at me and said, "Hey, good news, you're going to Iraq with 9th ESB, Engineer Support Battalion," right? So I was like, oh, all right, cool, you know, awesome. So I go off to Iraq, come back, went to the armory for like a little bit, and then from there, I went to Victor 22 out in North Carolina, right? The 22 Warlords. All right. Greatest unit I was ever in also. We had awesome, amazing, amazing people there. But around that time, wiremen started to change. They realized maybe we weren't as dumb as what we are, and they got rid of switchboard operator, and they made us also switchboard operators. And the switchboards started to change around that time too. When I say switchboards, I'm talking old school, unplug, plug it in somewhere else, like what you see in old school movies. Then we had a SB3614, which that thing was just trash, I thought. SB3865, that at least gave you some feedback on what you were doing. Still would overheat, if you breathed out the wrong way, but we were finally getting some good gear, and all of a sudden, I go back to Iraq again with a 2.2, and we got this thing called an IDX, which if you're telecommunications, you know what an IDX is. Well, we didn't at that time, And this was digital, and you used a computer to program it, and it was, holy crap, this is new, right? So we got like a 45-minute crash course on how to use an IDX, which is not enough, and that will never be enough. But sure enough, we got it up, and we made a phone call, and it worked, right? And it was like, holy crap, we did it. And the IDX is open, right? You can see all the cards and everything. You can take cards out, you put different cards in, you can put more line cards in there, add more phones, things like that. And that started to pique my curiosity on hardware. I'm like, man, this is pretty cool, right? And so it kind of started to pique my curiosity like a little bit. We had to start doing stuff that was digital. We had to start working with computers and things like that. That wasn't a thing. That wasn't really, that was Data's job. We didn't work with computers. I didn't know what the hell an IP address was. I didn't know what a port was. I didn't know what any crap was, right? And so they started to try to treat us more digital, but we still weren't quite there yet. And then what's called an RSAM came out, and also a Deos, which is like a militarized version of the IDX, like a much smaller, much more condensed, it can get beat up a lot more version of it, right? And I was mostly working with the RSAM because I was mostly in Victor units or infantry units, and I started to realize that, hey, you can do stuff with this RSAM. You can, add more routes. We can hook it up to a civilian telephone line and actually make civilian phone calls. I started to realize things like this. And so I started learning more and more and more about it. And then all of a sudden, years down the road, that happened for years. I kept training other guys, trying to get them like, hey, this is what you can do. And as people started to learn the capabilities of it, they started to like it. That was something that really got to me. Like, as I was training these guys, they started to learn what these things can actually do. They actually started to, enjoy what they were doing instead of just kind of, I run wires or, I move boxes. They actually liked what they were kind of doing. And they realized once you learned to program it, you sat in air conditioning because it needed to be air conditioned. So that was a big, hey, you can come sit in this air conditioning room and do this. It's like, whoa, we have air conditioning? I'm also, like I said, in the Marine Corps at this time. So if you're in the Army and you're wondering, why we have air conditioning, funding. Give us some money. All right, so then from there, everything started to move more digital, right? And more digital, more digital. And then all of a sudden, it became so digital that the data guys were just getting overwhelmed. And it was getting so overwhelming that I started to kind of work with them and things like that to try to help them out. I started to learn, okay, this is how we tip cable. Okay, this is what an IP address is. This is what a subnet is. I don't know how to subnet yet, but this is what a subnet is. Things like that. And then they got rid of wiremen. So I was a wire chief at that time. I was a staff sergeant at that time, and they got rid of wiremen. Now, a bunch of people were all butthurt about it, but in all honesty, there's no point in having wiremen anymore. There really wasn't. Everything was moving digital. We had all this digital equipment. Hooking up phones is not hard. It's 2 ports, and you have a 2-wire cable. It doesn't matter which one you use on which side. You hook it up, and all of a sudden it rings. It's not a difficult process, right? Then became a network chief. And I was fortunate enough to be able to go to network chief's course, the first one that they had in the Marine Corps, and I had some amazing instructors. Still didn't know too much about it, right? But I was just fortunate enough to, be able to go the first course, and they started teaching us subnetting, and I caught on really quickly. They started teaching us a lot of Cisco stuff, right? EIGRP we learned. We learned, VLANs, how to kind of more segregated network, why to tear down VLAN 1, things like that. And I started learning more and more firewalls. I started learning more and more about this, and it really piqued my interest. I was like, man, I really actually like this. And then I started learning, like, hey, I'm not too bad at this. I'm at least knowing where to find the answers and things like that. So at that time, I'm a wire chief. So I moved from being one of the dumbest MOSs in the Marine Corps to I'm now a network chief and, one of the smarter MOSs in the Marine Corps. And I was like, huh, okay, cool, And we worked on mostly like layer 1 through 3. It's really layer 1 through 4, but you can't really mess with too much layer 4 stuff. I can't change TCP to UDP and go in the software. I'm going to totally recompile it. That's not going to happen. So they say we're layer 1 through 4, but okay, yeah, sure. We're layer 1 through 3. Systems is layer 5 through 7. Nobody's messing with the UDP, TCP, except for working with firewalls, right? That we can block UDP, TCP, things like that. But yeah, I started learning about ports and stuff like that. I was like, all right. And then I went to Network Plus. Excuse me, I went to Network Plus actually before all that, and I failed hard. But Network Plus started to teach me a lot more about ports, about IP addresses, about all that stuff. And then I went to my Network Chiefs course. Failed Network Plus, but I was super happy, super fortunate to be able to do that course, right? Especially since it's being paid for, and I failed it, and nobody expected a wireman to pass it. Everyone's just like, oh, okay, cool. Did you learn something? Yep, good job. All right. So from there, I became a network chief, like I said, and we were out on an op, and we were bored, as Marines get. We're bored. Instead of throwing rocks at each other like most Marines do, me and my buddy, we decided, let's look at Wireshark, right? So we started looking at Wireshark, and we saw a weird port come through. We're like, oh, that's weird. So we started looking at this port, and we realized it was a Windows port that went out and searched for other Windows machines to see if it had the most up-to-date Windows version. All right, this was Windows 10, so we were like, huh. But what IP address is it going to? We ended up figuring out it was the OP4, so the guys that were against us, right? We ended up figuring out it was them. And from there, we started to kind of look into it. Since I was networking, I started to try to break down their network. And we ended up actually breaking down their network to actually say, like, oh, this is how their network is built. Now, obviously, we pretty much had the same build out of the network, so it wasn't like, some crazy thing that we were doing. But we ended up being able to get in their servers. And once we got on their servers, we started downloading different things. We started grabbing different things and started being able to use those things for other stuff, right? Can't go too deep into that part. But, we started being able to do different things, right? And the infantry guys just ran through these other dudes because we knew exactly what the OP4 was planning because we had all their stuff. So we sat there, we did that. We're like, and that really got me like, wow, that was really cool, right? And so I think that's what started the whole, I think from going from the hardware and being able to mess with hardware, being able to mess with all that stuff into the digital side of it, and then actually seeing, holy crap, we can actually mess with this stuff. That's pretty cool. Then I took Sec Plus. I found Sec Plus much easier than Net Plus. Retook Net Plus, things like that. And I wanted to do more, right? I want to do a lot more. So at this point, I already had a master's in business administration because I thought I was going to get kicked out of the Marine Corps because I wasn't a high enough rank yet and all sorts of stuff. But I ended up getting promoted. So I wanted to learn more stuff, and at this point, I started another master's degree in IT project management, which actually kind of with a graduate certificate in cybercrime, which actually kind of started as a joke because my buddy was actually taking college. He was like, "Yo, dude, I'm gonna have more degrees than you soon." So I was like, "All right, cool, bet." So I just decided I'm just gonna start another master's program, right? When you get free college, that's what you do, I guess. I don't know. I'm very fortunate for all that. You know what I'm saying? But I started doing that, and when I was taking the IT project management with the cybercrime, I realized I really, really, really enjoy this cybercrime. And I really enjoyed the IT project management, but I really enjoyed the cybercrime. I really enjoyed what we were talking about, things like that. And I started to dig deeper and deeper and deeper and stuff. They would talk about things like, open source intelligence stuff, but they would talk about different things that happen, different attacks. But I was like, well, how was that done? And I started looking really, really deep into that, right? A little bit too deep. And then that's like right when I started downloading Kali and started trying stuff on myself. And I was like, holy crap, like this is really, really cool. I really like this, you know? And then I found out about Try Hack Me and everything. And that's like when I realized like I'm really, really passionate about all of this. This is really cool stuff. So then I started looking at certifications. You know, after doing Try Hack Me's for a long time and things like that, I started like, well, are there any certifications for this? And that's like when I found EJPT. And I decided, okay, yeah, I'll try that. And I did the EJPT and I passed it fairly quickly. And I was like, man, like that was freaking awesome. This is also around the time right when I started to document my learning, right? So, as I said, I'm still in the Marine Corps like right now. I still have a couple years left before I retire. Back out in Okinawa. But this is like where I started to realize, like, oh man, I can, you know, I'm learning this stuff. I'm getting tested on it. And I'm getting through these tests pretty quickly. That test pretty quickly. So I thought I was the bee's knees, right? Then I took the ECPPT. Realized I was not the bee's knees. All right, but passed it. And I was like, oh, you know, I did it. It was very hard, very difficult for me to pass, but I passed it. If I were to go back to it now, it'd probably be, you know, fairly easy, but that's what happens when you continue to go on and on and on with stuff. From there, I then took the EWPT, failed it, took it again, and passed it. And I was like, okay, cool, you know, like, learn from your failures, right? And I was almost kind of happy that I failed it, because you kind of get to the point where you're like, I am God mode, you know? And then all of a sudden you fail something and it busts you back down to, hey, you don't know everything. And I got to that point where I thought I was the bee's knees, right? I was like, yeah, easy day, you know? Going through Try Hack Me's, it's all like easy boxes and stuff, you know? Not doing any networks or anything, but I thought, yeah, I got this, you know? No. And I was almost kind of happy that I failed it, because it was like, hey, you're not good. You have a lot more to learn, right? And that kind of opened up my eyes. And then I started to, you know, really get into it and really study it and start to listen to different blogs or different YouTube channels. Found TCM, found Conda, you know, all those guys. You know, I still wasn't on Twitch yet. Still was not on Twitch or anything like that yet. But that's like where I really started to get into it, right? And from there, I just realized it was just a downhill, you know, just, hey, like, this, I really, really like doing this. And I have continued to like to do it. I've gotten burned out. I think actually in one of the YouTube videos a long time ago, I talked about getting burned out, but I got burned out. And after about a week of not doing it, I had that itch again, like, hey, like, you need to get back on Try Hack Me, you need to get another cert, you know, things like that. So after the EWPT, I took the Network Defense Professional course. I want to kind of get back to my roots, you know, and I passed the EWPT, the web penetration testing one, and then I want to kind of get back to my roots of Network Defense Professional. And I really like that one. I learned more with firewalls. I learned more with the Windows system and Active Directory. And that's what really got me into Active Directory was Network Defense Professional course. Which I kind of find it funny. I kind of find it funny because, you know, it was Network Defense Professional. But that's like when I really wanted. It wasn't, you know, I listened to TCM. I did things like that. And I thought it was cool he's doing, but I wasn't really in the Active Directory portion of it yet. That's what got me into it. And then after that, I did, you know, it's, obviously this is spread out through months and months of time. I did like my latest cert, the CRTP, and that's what really, really, really got me into Active Directory, things like that. So my plans for when I retire, right? Why am I doing all this and everything like that? I really, really, really like penetration testing. I think it's absolutely amazing. I would absolutely love to be able to have a job as a penetration tester. Even if it's blue side with some penetration testing, red team stuff, I would just love to absolutely have a job where I'm able to do what I truly enjoy doing as a living. I really do. I just truly, truly enjoy it. I think it's amazing. I think every single box you get into, even like on Try Hack Me stuff like that, every single one's different. You know, every single one is different. You learn something new every single time you do it. And then you just continue to increase your level of learning. I think the hardest part is going from easy to medium. I think that's one of the hardest parts. Medium to hard, I don't think it's too difficult. I think the hardest part's easy to medium. That's because you're still new. You still haven't figured out quite your methodology yet and everything like that. I'm still new. I still haven't figured out quite my methodology, stuff like that. I haven't done a real penetration test. I don't know, I've done tests that simulate real ones, but I've never actually got told, hey, this is a company, and with a test, it's still vulnerable. Maybe not everything in there is vulnerable, but you still know that something in there is vulnerable, and you're going to be able to get to, domain admin, or you're going to be able to get to, the DMZ or whatever else. You're going to be able to do it. When you're on an actual engagement, you don't know that. So I've never done anything like that. But yeah, I'm doing all this really just to be able to start to build up my knowledge, build up that, hey, I actually know the knowledge. One of the biggest things I think the Marine Corps has taught me, and some people may disagree with this, others may agree with it, things like that, is you need to prove your knowledge. That's one of my biggest things, is that to be able to get the interview, you need to be able to prove your knowledge. I feel like certifications prove that knowledge. Like, hey, I did do this, And I feel like they prove knowledge. Now, how much they prove knowledge is debatable, right? You may have just copied and pasted every single command, and it may have just worked. And you may not know what those commands do and everything. I feel like once you go into that medium level, though, you start to understand what these commands do, and I feel like that's what makes it more difficult, is that you start to understand what the commands do, how they work and everything, and I feel like and you have to understand that to get to that medium level, and I feel like that's like what makes it difficult. And yeah, really, I'm just doing all this just to, like I said in my last video, just to document my learning and everything like that, be able to go back and always look at what I've learned and everything instead of just, copious amounts of notes and, 1,000 blog posts. That's going to take time and everything. I feel like, why not just, as I'm doing the box, I'll video it, and there we go. Now I got my notes, Obviously, I have the box up. I remember a lot of the boxes that I did. I remember at least what they had on them. And so, or I know that I've done this before, so I can start to look it up and be like, oh, I did it there. Let me go ahead and check out that box and see what happened, see how I did it. So that's really why I started making the videos and stuff like that. But yeah, my future goals are really just finally be able to get the OSCP. I want to make it almost whereas when I get to OSCP level, where I take the test, where it's just a check in the box kind of thing. That's how I kind of want to make it. I want to have enough knowledge to when I get there that's just go through it, and yep, there you go. And now I can get, go talk to HR. But yeah, that's really my goals, is to be able to do that, to be able to do something within penetration testing whenever I retire from the Marine Corps in a couple of years. So I know the question's been brought up a couple times on Discord. It got brought up on YouTube. So I decided to make a video of it. There you go. That's all I really got. This isn't like I don't want to sound like, like you have to do this or whatever, that you don't, whatever else. I don't want to sound like rude or anything like that, or anything like that. It's more or less like everyone learns at their own pace and everything. And as long as you continue to learn and you continue to do it, you're going to get better. You're going to continue to learn more and more and more. I watch Twitch channels all the time, and I realize, yep, I still suck. Oh, I thought this was the path. But every once in a while, when you are like, man, I think this is the path, then all of a sudden the guy, you and another guy both post at the same time. It's like, damn, like that feels good. And, and I feel like, people get to that level. It's like, damn, like that's pretty cool. Like me and someone else both thought this was the way to do it. But yeah, that's about it. Thanks for asking the question. Sorry for the long video. It's like 24 minutes long. Sorry for the whole history of freaking last 18 years, but that's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you got anything, leave some feedback, stuff like that. Tell me fuck off or whatever else, whatever you guys want to tell me. Doesn't bother me. You guys have a good one.